Today it's 6 hacks to get crazy good on guitar. Feels like a cheat code and it's all based on science. Hello and welcome to another video with me, Elmo. It's good to have you along. Yes, today I'm talking about 6 hacks to get crazy good on guitar, and these are some that people absolutely ignore. And it's not about repetitions, because repetitions don't work. So let's get going. Number 1, you need consistency. Consistency is key. It's like a snowball that you roll down a hill. You know what happens? The snowball gathers more snow and it gets bigger and bigger. That's what consistency looks like. You practice on a Monday, on a Tuesday, a Wednesday, it compounds, it builds up your skills. If you practice on a Saturday and the next time on a Thursday, you will have forgotten a lot of what you've learned, and it will not compound. It won't even stack in the same way. So it's really, consistency is key. Even short periods of time, even like 2 minutes a day, you can get started with that. Build up to 5, then to 10, then to 15 minutes. So start with consistency. But even consistency, if you're consistently practicing the wrong way and the wrong things, well, that won't help too much. The second thing you need is goals. And goals, first of all, ideally you would need a big goal, something like I want to play like Gary Moore, or something, it can be anyone you choose, specific really. If you don't have a big goal, it's kind of like going sailing without knowing where you're going. It could be fun, but you won't get very far. So a big goal is great because you can chop that into smaller bits. You can get by without the big goal, having kind of a general sense of where you're going and just doing the small bits instead, but it's a bit more tricky. I like to think of it as a ladder. So the top of the ladder, that's the big goal, the one that feels unattainable. I want to be like my heroes. And then you chop that into smaller bits. So if we're thinking Gary Moore, you would lead to I've lost my speech. So if we're thinking Gary Moore, you would need to learn bends and vibrato. You would need to learn picking, you would need to learn scales and all that kind of stuff. You can break all of that stuff down, either by yourself, by reading stuff, looking up stuff, or with the help of a teacher or someone who knows a bit more about guitar playing than you do. But it makes it so much simpler if you have a big goal and then you chop that down into smaller goals. Number 3, do you have one of these? No, I don't mean that you're going to play slide with your telephone. What I mean is you take your telephone and you put it in flight mode. Why? Because that will let you focus. You won't constantly be interrupted by notifications and stuff like that. Also, if you live with people, let's say your parents, tell them to bugger off, but do it nicely so that they don't get angry or sad. And if you live with children, lock yourself in a basement like something that lives under a rock and never come out. Because focus is absolutely key. In the beginning, you won't even be able to focus for very long if you're not used to it. What you're practicing is actually not just your instrument, it's also the ability to practice, the ability to focus, which is universally useful. And if you get really good at focusing, you will be able to do maybe 4 hours of focused practice or work a day, and the rest of the time you'll be doing something else. You might be able to do more, some people are. You might be able to do more by taking a long break and starting over later on, but I've read it that 4 hours is kind of a general maximum of people who are actually quite good at focusing. And when you focus, you will get so much better results than if you sit around and just noodle. Noodling has its place. If you're, for instance, let's say you're going for something creative, where you want to just see what comes out naturally. You don't want to force anything. Writing songs, stuff like that, noodling is fine. You can also get an added benefit from watching television and just playing something scales or whatever while you're watching The Simpsons as an added bonus to your focused practice. But you cannot substitute your focused practice. You have to have it. Otherwise, you will not progress at the rate that your potential would allow. Number 4 ties in with goals in a way, because this can give you short-term, smaller goals. It has to do, if you're practicing something that has to do with speed, use a metronome. Not all the time, but some of the time, to measure your progress. Measuring your progress is great because it gives you certain things that you would otherwise not get. For instance, you can, if you have a metronome, it'll give you the next goal. So let's say you can do this. At 100 beats per minute, but then you go to 104, that's your next goal. Then 108, you get your next goal. That makes it a competition against yourself. You want to see how far you can get, how fast you can get there. It doesn't have to be about speed, but in terms of a metronome, that will certainly help. But even just getting a bit faster without going for full shred. Another way to do this is to record yourself, or even better, film yourself, because then you can hear what it sounds like when you play, which will in turn develop your ear, but it will also give you pointers on what to improve. And if you filmed yourself, you can look at what looks right and what looks wrong and compare it to the people that you think are the greatest of the great. So if your hand looks really stiff, maybe there is something you can do about that. You might not notice it without filming it. So measuring progress, absolutely brilliant. Number 5, breaking it down. What do I mean by this? Well, I did this exercise a year or so ago, which is basically just the C major scale in groups of 5. And as you noticed, I got into trouble right around here. That's the bit I had trouble with when I was practicing this. But I didn't just start over every time that I messed up, because that would mean that I would learn the start, the beginning of the thing really well, and always just end up messing this bit. And so on. What I did was, when I messed up that bit, I did it again. And then I did it again and again. And now it's been a year since I did it properly, so now I've messed it up again. But the thing is, if you have a 3-minute song and you get 2 minutes in and you mess up there, don't start from the beginning, because you won't learn the tricky bit. Do the tricky bit. Break it down. Similarly, if you're doing something that has to do with, let's say, the spider exercise, you can break it down into just right hand. Make it easier for your left hand by staying on one string. Break it down. Focus again. Oh, and by the way, don't try to learn too many things at once. See that they connect to each other. Number 6, and this goes back to measuring your progress a bit as well. You want to practice at the edge of your abilities, or practice something you don't know. So let's think about your planning on running a 100-meter sprint, a competition. You wouldn't practice for that by going out for a walk. You want to be pushing your skill level. So again, if you're doing 100 beats per minute, you maybe start at 92, then you go to 96, then you go to 100. Those first two are kind of a warm-up thing that you go to the edge and try to push that edge. 92, 96, 100. You manage 100, you go to 94. You can't manage 94, then you go back to 96. This is all stuff that's been scientifically explored and documented by a guy called Anders Ericsson, who wrote a book called Peak. I forget what it continues as. It's Peak, something like how we can all achieve extraordinary things, something like that. And he came up with the term deliberate practice, purposeful practice. And a lot of that has to do with really being at the edge until you're frustrated, and then you get breakthrough, you have goals and you focus. All of that. Because repetitions, like I said, they don't work. Because if you plan to sprint 100 meters, walking is a repetition. But it's not really at the edge of your ability. There is something else missing from this, and that's fun, but I will talk more about that in other places, and I've talked about that in other places. One place where I do talk about that is my Guitar Academy, which is linked in the description if you want to check that out. It has a 30-day trial, so if you're not happy after 30 days, you get your money back, no questions asked. Who is it for? Not for complete beginners, but if you're kind of on the way, it can be really good for you. Basically, the idea is that I teach you everything that I know. All of it's not there yet, but it will be added as we go along, and you get lifetime access just for one purchase. So please, I do hope you check that out. If you want to check out some video on the biggest guitar learning myths, that's here. But apart from that, I hope you had some use of this. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a nice day. Take care. See you. Be kind to each other. Goodbye.